Hey, what's up folks? Welcome back to the channel. This is your first time here. My name is Goran. You guys are watching Reef on the Reef YouTube channel. Today, we're visiting Seastainable Supply, which is a wholesale supplier of fish and coral here in Chicago area. I think it's one of the biggest facility that we have here around. Since lots of LFSs here in our area, they're just not as big and complex as some of the other ones like in California or Florida are. So I was super excited when I found them. They've been open for a little bit over a year right now. I've spoke with Mark about lots of different things about this hobby, like all logistics or bringing in live fish and coral, chain of custody, who's catching fish for our hobby, like which drugs are used, which a lot of hobbyists don't like to hear that their fish is being caught with drugs. But that's why, since I spoke a little bit longer with Mark, I decided to leave everything in there and try to edit this video as less as possible. And as I said, since we touched on some of the topics a little bit more controversial, watch this video all the way through the end and then comment down below. Like the video and subscribe so you don't miss none of my future videos. And yeah, let's go talk with Mark and check out Seastainable Supply.
My name is Mark Vera. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Seastainable Supply. I currently manage and run the facility in the company. I'm in charge of this facility, which is a 15,000 square foot aquaculture facility and import facility with live fish, coral, and invertebrates, freshwater fish, and soon to be plants. My background is working in both biology and custom aquarium design. My kind of expertise was in certain fish breeding and then into system design, life support design, and different types of signathids and specialty aquariums. So total, all in all, facility has been up and running for approximately 14, 15 months, I think, right now. When I was asked to be part of this project, it was some hard and set rules right from the beginning. Was we wanted to have a high level of professionalism, high level of quality, and really focus on that and the sustainability aspect to be responsible and good stewards for the industry. You had a question on where we're bringing our livestock in. It's from all over the world, from the Caribbean to Marshall Islands, the Solomon Islands, Indonesia, Philippines, Sri Lanka. The places that you can find live coral is getting smaller and smaller. We made it a kind of a hard line in the sand that no more than 5% of anything we import would be wild. So we focus primarily with farming coral, and that right now we work with one of the largest farms that are producing cultured coral in Indonesia. So that's our primary focus. That's our primary source. And then again, it's almost impossible to get all the species because certain things do not lend themselves to farming. So we do have, some wild specimens, but we're very particular who we do business with, and we do audit our suppliers. So we both have a person that goes around the world as well as myself and do travel out. We audit their practices, we audit their farms. We also audit how they're treating their divers to make sure that they're diving in safe ways. We just this last year spent a few $1,000s bringing out equipment from BCDs to regulators to proper equipment for one of the farms that was using not up-to-date equipment and things like that to ensure safety of the divers. We're taking the extra time, not just to set up our facility right, but make sure that our suppliers are also doing the right thing. Talking about chain of custody, whether it be coral or fish, chain of custody is actually an extremely complicated process. Whether it be on the farm, and it's a coral or a fish that is brought in through bycatch, these are all starting generally, for the most part, overseas or on the Caribbean coast. And so what that means is that these specimens are being collected, and on that side of the world, it is literally just a move it in, move it out situation. There's not a lot dedicated. Now, we have a couple of fish farms and facilities that do actually a really good job that we've worked with and talked through pre-disease treatment. But in the entire chain of custody, it's very difficult to ensure a lot of treatment because simply they're moving through the chain so quickly. So as they move from there, we go into what we consider the logistics phase. And the logistics phase is relatively complex. Aside from all the regulatory agencies and things that you have to deal with, you have the logistics of finding the right flights, the airlines that have space, not getting bumped off that airline, paying the highest perishable rates in the entire air cargo industry. All of these things, wiring money ahead of time, making all of these things come into play, and making sure you have a good partner that is trustworthy on the other side of the world. Once you get all that squared away, now you're ready to get it on a flight. That means they start working at 1 a.m. in the morning and they start getting everything ready to be able to have at the airport at 3, 4 in the morning. to hopefully make that flight. Some of our most common ones, and I always tell the story about how, they have several stops. So if it's coming out of Bali during the pandemic, it would have to go to Jakarta, then Taipei, then Alaska, then Chicago. In some of the cases, it's simpler where it's going Bali to Japan to Chicago. I personally have flown some of these flights, whether it be on Singapore Airlines, JAL, and they're the longest flights in the world. It's a long process as a person sitting there. So I can't imagine being put in a bag and then shipped around the world the same way. It's a long time and a lot of stress. However, what we do to accommodate for that is what we call the soft landing. So it's one thing to get it landed, and then we have to go through all the regulatory processes and licensing processes to actually get it released. And then we finally get it. We've had USDA hold us up for 12 hours. It's all pushing. It's high stress, getting it all squared away and getting these animals through that chain as fast as possible, and then starting our soft landing. Our soft landing on the fish side is actually quite complex. The fish are actually put in. We have a whole section dedicated to bringing them in. We test out of each box of fish. We'll test 3 bags, get an average pH level to determine how much they've breathed, how long it's been in transit. We'll get the temperature, and then we will modify some holding systems down to those levels, and then we will adjust the pH down to that. Lower pH is better when they first come in. They've breathed a lot of carbon dioxide in water. Excess carbon means lower pH. That lower pH is going to result in detoxifying ammonia within their blood. Ammonia in the water and in their blood is more toxic at higher level pHs. So by keeping them low artificially, temporarily, we can actually keep that down. Then they go through a process where we use a couple of different drugs to help export nitroglobulin, which is ammonia in their blood. It's nitrogen in their blood. We're trying to bring that out before bringing that pH back up. Then slowly that pH is brought back up with pure oxygen. The temperature is brought up, and then once they match our systems, they are deemed ready to go into our systems. That whole process takes 24 to 26 hours. So that's the investment we make up front. What we see and we have seen compared to other facilities and other experiences that I've had, an exponential increase in success in the quality and the survivability of the fish. And then they go into our system where they can then begin going through treatment protocols from praziquantel to hyposalinity to different types of treatments. So depending on the different types of species, we do have our systems segregated in different ways. So you'll see we have 2 rows of fish, and then we also have some aquariums on the wall that we can get really hyper focused and hyper treatment. So certain fish have a high propensity towards cryptocarian. So in those particular cases, copper is essential, and a treatment level of copper. Well, we don't want to treat every fish with copper. Some don't have a propensity to it. Some cannot accept copper. So by using smaller systems, we can treat things like powder blues, powder browns. We can treat them with a little bit higher level of copper and get them through a couple weeks of copper to make sure that we knock that cryptocarian down. All of our systems are bare bottom. All of our systems are running hyposalinity. All of our systems are running ozone to oxidize parasites and bacteria. And then we're also running UV to limit transmission. One of our systems is more hyposaline than the other ones because certain fish will tolerate it more. Scaleless fish don't tolerate it very well, so they need special treatment. Then the other thing is that some fish cannot tolerate copper at all. So we may choose to put them in with something like chloroquine phosphate or nitrofurazone or something else to try and treat other common ailments that they will come in. For the first 5 days, our number one goal is get them eating. And we use aminostimulants inside their foods. So getting that into their body is critical. So it's straight into pounding away at feed. We feed 3 times a day, starting with anthias. Anthias are primarily planktivores. They eat lots of plankton. So we focus on smaller diets, smaller mysis shrimp. We use some appetite stimulants to trigger feeding. So we start working with that, and we feed 3 times a day to try and keep something in the water column. We try to get closer to what their natural feeding behavior is. Certain animals like frogfish, they don't eat often in the wild. So they're not going to just jump right into eating. So that is something that takes time and teasing and doing lots of work with. Whereas there's other things like the herbivorous fish. We use obviously nori, spirulina tabs from Sarah. We use a couple different things. We distribute and believe and use a lot of Ocean Nutrition and San Francisco Bay brand products. Brine Shrimp Plus. I think it's one of the things that gets fish eating very quickly, whether it be in the frozen form, flake form. I think it's a great diet. We do have some newly hatched brine shrimp. Sometimes when we get some really finicky eaters like cowfish or some of those anthias just simply won't start. We'll do some newly hatched baby brine shrimp. We hatch them every single day, and that'll also getting them more into eating quickly. Going back to the process, the acclimation process, because coral is obviously significantly different. Right. Different coral also will get treated differently. From acroporas have their own specific treatment protocol, and then all of the LPS generally goes straight into a dip. We dip for 15 minutes of a couple different things. Some are proprietary, some are just Julian's Revive. So what we do, again, with the coral, we will then get an average of the pH of the bags. We will treat them just like the fish. We will adapt and get our temperature in our receiving trays to where it matches closely to reduce the amount of stress from one point to the other. And then once they're all in and unbagged, start the dip, and you'll see around our facility, you see little timers everywhere, because we time everything. We run everything according to protocols. So we'll run that protocol for 15 minutes. And then immediately start removing them, getting them into other bins, and then straight into our holding system. We will re-dip at certain junctures if we see things, but we try to take a lot of natural approaches with fish. So with 6 lines, tamarin wrasses, pipefish, the holding tanks on the coral systems are quite large. But what we did is, if you look below, it's all water. There's twice, if not 3 times as much capacity underneath, and it's all live rock. It's highly regulated now. There's only a certain amount that comes out of the ocean. We do believe home hobbyists should really focus more on the manufactured rock, mostly from the aesthetic standpoint and ease of use. But we're looking at building a holding system to take Carib Sea rock that we distribute and then mix it with live rock and let it sit for 6 months. And not just curing, but also, sharing that live material and then being able to sell that as not a live rock, but a manufactured, more eco-friendly alternative to the live rock. So, and I think stores really should be doing that in their stores, because it's a capacity issue.
They should be doing it with sand as well. That's what I think.
Sand is a good one. People get a little confused in the sense that they think you need a whole lot of it in your home aquarium to seed it. The truth is, you really don't need that much, because it's a matter of infection, right? So you're taking this piece of completely dead rock that was mined out of a quarry in Florida, and you're taking this one that is just rife with all these bacteria and all of this organisms and everything else. Literally by proximal location, you're going to get crossover, and it's just going to spread into that. And we're talking about things like bacteria and microorganisms and microfauna. It doesn't take much for it to infect. In the bottom of each one of our biotowers for our fish systems, I dropped, to seed the system, just 1 piece of live rock. Just one, probably, 4-kilo piece of live rock right to the bottom. And we have our K1 media going, and just by virtue of being in there together, it's infected all that K1 media. I have very high-end clientele that hire me on a consultation basis. And some of the biggest things I do, I look at myself primarily as a nature's negotiator. So they'll come in and I want this and I want that, and I want to buy the opening of my restaurant or this and that. And the way I tell them is the way I would say it to a beginning hobbyist. You can't negotiate with nature. Nature's going to do what nature's going to do. So you have to look at what the natural way things are going to happen, and then take that and then tailor your patience and your desires within those confines. You look at carpet anemones. Carpet anemones are generally pretty deep, 10 meters or more. And because essentially they live forever, you don't know how old they are, that they've adapted to this for so long. And then you try to make this change on them. And that's fine if you can stay close to what they are and reduce the amount of stress. It's been documented that people leave our hobby is because of lack of success. So it's important to tailor people's expectations early on in their hobby, so that they can understand that before they dump a bunch of money in. I did a lecture to Columbia University. I did 2. A lot of the students were asking if our industry is detrimental to the planet. And everything that a human does is detrimental to the planet. We eat food, we're detrimental. We drop feces, we're detrimental in some way. Our carbon footprints are big, especially in America. The question is, you have to put that into relation of everything, right? So when we look at ornamental industry, comparatively to like commercial fishing or agricultural runoff or all of these other things, we're not even a drop in the bucket. We're a drop of a drop of a drop in the bucket, right? Fish die in our care, they die in aquariums' cares, they die in public aquariums' care. The key is for all of us to do the best that we possibly can. It can be unpopular saying that cyanide is still a part of our industry. It is. Is it a huge and prolific part of our industry? Not the way it used to be, no. But these are truths of the industry, and it's very unpopular to sometimes say these things. But I believe in being as transparent as possible. So the use of cyanide is very unpopular, and it's very detrimental to reefs. But there's other drugs that can be used that have the same effect as cyanide, MS-222. There's different ways to catch. Our collectors, we go out with them. The overwhelming majority are net caught or bycatch, right? There's a certain number and type of fish, jawfish, for example. You get close to them, they go down in the sand. You're not going to get them. It's just as simple as that. Wrasses dive down in the sand. So in these particular cases, you do have to have a drug or some other method of catching them. And the reality is the poorest people in the world are the people collecting our fish. To expect them to go out and spend $1,700 a gallon on a drug that is going to catch a fish for our industry, that fish simply, it wouldn't be able to be traded and they wouldn't be able to afford it. Now, using cyanide is detrimental. Is using cyanide responsibly and using it in the right circumstances and a minimal amount acceptable in the grand scheme of things? To a certain extent, yes. Are there bad actors that use way too much or spray it right onto the reef or things like that? Yes. So that's why we do the due diligence to go out and audit. We look at the practices of collection and we make a determination of where our threshold is. And that threshold is going to be different for everybody. But the reality is this, and this is how I sleep at night. When we take all of this into consideration and we look at what the biggest threats to these wild populations is, it's not the aquarium ornamental industry. It's going to be the things that we do every single day and don't even think about. So by bringing these animals country or into our homes, we create a love for these species that we would not have any other way. And that's critical to their survival. Because as humans, we have a bad habit of saying, that's over there, that's them, that's something that doesn't apply to me. But making it relevant to people is a key to making people protected. And you can't do that without seeing them firsthand. And that whether it be in a public aquarium or in a private setting, the only reason people are going to protect it is because they're in love with it. And the other side of that is the only way it's going to be relevant and protected is if there's money involved and it has a monetary value. Humans do not protect things they consider worthless. And these specimens have value once you start trading in them. And that's going to also be part of their protection.
The whole hobby knows. Like everyone speaks about it. When I went diving as well, like divers know that there's less and less corals to collect and less fish to collect. If I wasn't in the hobby, if I didn't want diving, I would have zero idea what's going on, Right. That's just how it is. I'll watch TV, all right, whatever. There's two sides, who should I trust?
Right.
Like this, we know for sure what's going on.
Right. And we look at that in very easy and kind of low energy way to try and associate blame by saying, well, they take it out of the ocean, it's their fault. Right. But the reality is the fact that this hobby exists is the same reason that farming exists, farming of coral. And we work with a farm that donates thousands, if not tens of thousands of specimens to charities such as the Linney Foundation in Indonesia, which are putting together artificial reefs in places where there were none before or damage has taken place. Without this side of the industry, that side of the industry simply would not exist. By doing what we do, we can also fund this other side of the industry. And not just this other side of the industry. When I talk about the poorest people in the world collecting these specimens, the poorest people in the world are finding work. These are populations that also assigned zero value to these things 50 years ago. They stomped on the reef, didn't care what the coral was because they didn't understand it.
Same as we were stepping on the grass or whatever.
Exactly.
That's the same.
It was just part of the ocean. And it was always going to be there and it's always going to be there. So by us buying it, we show them it has value. And now they protect it and they manage it and they want to see it last.
They're not stepping on it.
Exactly. And it goes right to the heart of, like, in their countries, agricultural runoff is regulated because of that. Dredging, all of these things. If it's going to damage something that is providing financial value to the region, they're not simply just going to wipe it away without taking a very pragmatic look and saying, but wait, we make money off of this. And if you don't have the ornamental trade, that all goes away. And then it is back to the grass. And who cares?
Each row is actually, it's 3 tanks combined. This is considered one system, so it's all the same water. You have these gray sumps underneath each one. Each of the sumps can hold about 250 gallons of water. It's got piping that will lead to the sump over here. Mm-hmm. Then it goes to the one over there, leads to the sump that holds the skimmer. And at the skimmer side, you have our main pumps. and it'll shoot it up. It'll drop into each one of these tanks. So for feeding the coral, we have lots of products that we sell here too. But one of the main things we like to use is a lot of Cyclops, a tiny little food, right? So that way the coral can easily grab it up and feed on it. Actually hatch up baby brine shrimp. I'll harvest them out and then I'll feed it to the coral over here. We use like turkey basters. That way we could specifically target feed. So I just give them a big blast around 3 o'clock. That's when you'll see a lot of the coral actually start opening up a little bit more because they're starting to get trained to, 3 o'clock, that means we're getting food.
Right.
So at that point, they're looking for it, right? Sometimes their shipments run long when we're unpacking the fish in a coral. So you actually get to see what happens, when it's past operation hours, right?
Right.
So the lights will start to dim down so it becomes completely black. And then we start seeing the corals close up. And
Well, some open up, some close up.
yeah.
Depends.
Or some coral, they definitely open up during that time. But other ones, they close up. We've actually been here early in the morning, too, to pack out some orders. And then that's always fun, trying to figure out the specific coral that the customer wanted when they're all closed up.
Right.
So at that point, I had to go off my memory of where they was in the specific system.
Because they look completely different.
Oh, yeah.
They look completely different.
You'd
Yeah.
be so surprised. It's so disorientating sometimes.
Yeah, I
I'm
love
like,
watching my fabias. When I look at my fabias in the evening, I'm like, this doesn't even look like the same coral
Right.
at all. For how long usually corals will stay in your system? Like
2 weeks is probably like the average. Some of like the higher end orchids and like higher end coral will sit for a little bit, and there's a lot of customers like to make sure that they're not going to just wither away as soon as they bring them in.
So me as a hobbyist, what I'll do first when I come in here, show me the corals that you guys had for a while. They look amazing.
I love
That's
it
the
when-
one I want. I don't want fresh shipment. Fresh shipment someone else can pick up. I mean, there's always awesome things that you guys
Right.
bring in. So for sure, there's some things. But especially as a beginner hobbyist, that's the question you want to ask.
Right. So I love it when people ask that question. I'm like, oh, let me tell you about the bower bankies we have over here. We've had some of those bower bankies since we opened up.
Thing is, maybe next year they're gonna be, the hot coral, and they'll be all gone.
That's how it is.
Yeah,
so
that's
we
tough.
do have certain types of corals where I could tell you like these will sit for a little bit because every customer has their own like different like range of like what coral is hot and what coral is not.
And you have then individual hobbyists that like certain corals this year, and then next year you're gonna do something
Exactly,
else,
yeah.
and next year they're gonna do something
That's
else.
part of the hobby. It's
Yeah.
like, having a fish tank, it's an ever-changing thing.
And plus, when you get into, let's say, glastos, then you want to have all of the other ones. You want to try to collect them,
I'll get in a lot of these euthelia, or I'll get in like chalices or any kind of coral and so I'll frag into smaller pieces. That way, I know a lot of the hobbyists they can afford a frag,
Right.
but they sometimes can't afford a large colony,
Or then don't have enough space for a large
Right.
coral, right?
Yeah. If you want a specific coral, you can always talk to your local store, and then they can reach out to us, and then we could try to figure out, okay, how can we get that coral for you guys? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to bring basically the sea to your home.
Right.
Who else could say that they could get some of these gorgeous yellow elegants over here?
Right, they look amazing.
I appreciate you making it all the way through the end. Now go ahead and comment down below if you have any opinions about what I spoke with Mark and with Luke. Subscribe so you don't miss none of my future videos. Until then, check out any of these two videos, and see you over there.